Today we're looking at Psalms 43. Psalms 43 is an interesting psalm. It's only 5 verses long. You'll notice that sometimes you'll have psalms that are deeper, fuller. Some of them are small little snippets to give you an idea or a flavoring. And the idea of poetry is to be different than prose, than the idea of when you go into Psalms, when you go into Proverbs, it's pretty much A to B. What is righteousness? What is waywardness? What is iniquity? What is goodness? You know, how to be wise? What is foolishness? Just boom, blank. This is the way it is. You cannot read that with poetry. Poetry is meant to be felt. It's meant to be emotive. And each one of them, if we do them one a day, which is what I'm telling you to do, you can concentrate on that emotive of that day. Sometimes that emotive will be in a very small portion, like something like 5 verses. Otherwise, we'll go 34 verses, but he's pulling out an idea. He's talking about, as the deer pants for the water, my iniquity is over my head, my sinfulness is more than I can see, that kind of thing. How good you are, how wonderful, how long-suffering and merciful you are. He'll expand upon these ideas with imagery. So the size of these matter because they're telling you something, and he's giving you exactly what you need for what he's trying to tell you. The Bible is very ergonomic when it comes to words. The words are not, there's no extraneous words. It's there for a reason. Maybe it's to you, maybe it's not, but it's all for us to learn from. One thing I've learned is that when you read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, you have a progressive understanding of the language of God. The first 5 books are in very simple wording, except for places and persons' names. Everything else is pretty simple. You know, king, queen, son, father, man, woman. He went up a mountain. He came down a mountain. We don't get a lot of explanations. There was a plague. It was this kind of plague, and boom, we go. Because it reads pretty much like if you were telling something to someone between like 5 and 10. But this is also something that all of us could read. Then you take that language, everything from Judges up through up through the prophets is history. So you have a different way of reading the history. The poetry books are more of something you feel like in middle school when you're starting to just understand about romance, and you're understanding about your feelings and other people's feelings and how life should be lived. So you're dealing with that in the poetry books, and the poetry ground you in understanding, again, how all we did back in middle school and maybe a couple of years of high school, to where we started kind of grappling with how things worked. Then when you get into Isaiah, the major and minor prophets, this is more like a college level. You know, you're dealing with how the world is going to be. You're dealing with righteous and judgment and wrath and consequences and expectations. You get a very deep heart cry for God and a heart cry from God. He goes in Jeremiah, what more could I have done? This is a very poignant feeling moment for God. Then, of course, you get the cries to his life. Then the rest of the Bible, up to Revelation, is how to live that life. Then Revelation is the life to come. I left out a small piece that Judges through Chronicles is more of like, you know, you're kind of middle school also. It's got the action, it's got the adventure, it's got witches and giants, and you're spreading water out. You've got battles, you've got intrigue, you've got deception, you've got strength, you've got, you know, all kinds of action going on. It's real action-based. So you're going up levels of understanding. So here we are. We're skipping the level of action to get to intimacy, feeling, emotives, but we're going to get to that. And as you move up through this, you will learn more and more how to make this real to yourself, because it fits our lifestyle. But most of the times, we're just trafficking around, leapfrogging around from verse to verse, creating all kinds of spider webs, beads on a string theologies, and we miss the whole point of the whole Bible. It's to be read from open to close. And that's what I'm attempting to do. So in 43, judge me, O God, and plead my cause against an ungodly nation. O deliver me from the deceitful and unjustful man. We've heard this before. And you are my strength. You are the God of my strength. Why are you casting me off? This idea of feeling despondent. And we've seen this before in a couple of other Psalms, where this feeling of despondency, we all have it. It comes back. The psalmist is really us. O send out thy light and thy truth. Let them lead me, he's saying. And I will go to your altar of God unto God my exceeding joy. Yea, upon the harp will I praise thee. Why are you downcast, O my soul? Why are you disquieted within me? Hope in God. So you see there's this powerful little 5-verse emotive that's thrown in there where it seems like, plead my case with the angry. Why are you so far away? But wait a minute, you aren't. You are my light and my truth. I will go to where you are. I will go to your altar. You are my God, my exceeding joy. And why are you disquieted, O my soul? Why are you disquieted when you have this reservoir right at your fingertips? So it's a very good psalm if you need some encouragement. 43 would be the one to do. Going back to, we're doing chapters 35 and 36 today. We're back to, again, remember that Moses came down, created the covenant. They agreed upon it, went back up, is in the middle of getting more of it when God tells him, you better go back down. They're sinning, and God is really angry at this point. He is hot. He's ready to wipe them all out. And Moses says, no, because of the promise you made to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and to the 12 sons, you cannot do it because you'd be breaking your own promise. And he holds God accountable to his words, and God is fine with being accountable to his words. This is why we have so many promises in the New Testament. He wants us to live by faith, holding him accountable to his words, rightly divided, of course. And we have to learn how to rightly divide his word. So, so Moses, he comes down, and he deals with them. He goes back and renews the covenant with God. God says, well, I'll send an angel, but I'm not going. And Moses is like, no, that won't work. I won't go without you. And so he goes ahead, and now he's going to get back into it, but he's still kind of hot. You know, so he goes in 34, and the Lord said to Moses, make two stones like before, and I will write upon the words that were in the first stones, which thou breakest. He wasn't mad about the breaking of the stones. We're going to do this again. So a lot of we see in these two chapters are a small reiteration of what the others that the other covenant. We're reaffirming that all of that's going to go back into play. Just let me reiterate the parts where you messed up on. So get ready in the morning. So he goes up. They set up the mount, and here we are in 35 and 36. We're dealing with now. We dealt with the fact that they've set this up. Now he's come back down, and he has this shining face. Now he goes over again the Sabbath regulations about not doing work on 6 days, and I won't go through all of this, but there's some interesting stuff I want to bring out. He gets this, and he says in 5, take ye among you who is offering unto the Lord, whoever is of willing heart. He doesn't want anyone to feel like this is a duty, this is something you have to do. I'm mad at you, go do this and do that. No, you have to be of willing heart. He brings the people into the game here. This is the thing, is the people were going to be in the game. Moses wasn't going to make this, and God wasn't just going to make it happen out of the rocks. The people were going to have to be involved in doing this for God. So he has among them, whosoever is of willing heart, let them work. And he reiterates again, the gold and the silver and the brass, blue, purple, and scarlet, fine linen with goat's hairs, ram skins dyed red, badger skins, and shittim wood. Now, the shittim wood there is interesting. I did a study on that. That's the acacia tree. And sometimes we're wondering, well, how did the people get a piece of wood that's like, 2 feet across by 15 feet tall? Well, I was researching, the acacia trees are often taller than giraffes. So you could chop one down and have a piece of wood that would be big enough to create this lumber. So that would not be a problem. We're seeing a lot of this. It's already been provided. It's provided on the landscape. It'll also see that it's provided by what they took out of Egypt. When they took out stuff, they plundered them. They took everything, but they took some resources that God is going to take from them willingly. He could go in there and just demand, give me this, give me that, and be the demanding God. But I want a willing heart. That's what he wants in Christ. You come to Christ willingly. There's a willfulness that he's wanting to do here. And so that if you're wise-hearted and you're going to make this, the tabernacle and the tent and the coverings and the thatches and the boards and the bars and the pillars and the sockets, and he goes through this whole litany, And it's exactly the same thing as we saw earlier. Now we see the people going to work. We saw the plan put out in chapter 25. Now we see them in 35. They're going to work on their tabernacle. And this game, both men and women were working on it. This wasn't just masculine oriented. And those of willing heart, they brought their bracelets of gold and ringlets and tablets, all their gold, and every man made offerings to the Lord. Now it's interesting that people are bringing these things that made them look beautiful. And they're taking what makes them beautiful to make God beautiful. So the idea of, again, take what's of you that's beautiful and give it to God. Don't give it to the world or to yourself. Give the beautiful to God. And here they are. And then they bring them these blue, purple, and scarlet, the linens, the goat hairs, the ram skins dyed red. And I was thinking about, where did they get all this dye? Well, when they were plundering, I was wondering, it's very possible that they may have plundered people. Let's say that we get the idea when we watch the Ten Commandments, Cecil B. DeMille's movie, that people are just all slaves stomping around in the mud making bricks, and that's all they did. No. They were servants everywhere. If you needed stonemasons, these were the ones who were making stone. If you needed people out in the woods creating lumber for the Egyptians to use, you would use Jewish slaves, the Israelite slaves. If you worked in a clothing manufacturing of dyeing garments for the Egyptians, you'd have a little clothing factory set up, and women and maybe some of the men would be working with the dyeing process, the sewing process. You're just sewing countless sheets and stuff, and housing and tents and draperies for the Egyptians. You were very finely, and they enjoyed beautiful work, so you would be an artiste, you would be a craftsman. So not only were people in the mud making bricks, but they were also craftsmen. And these craftsmen left, and they took stuff. If you were among someone who did the needlework and did the dyeing, they might have said, here, take some of this stuff. Here, take some of this dye. Here, take some of this. We don't need it. Take some of these needles and stuff, and sewing chairs and whatever. Just go. If you belonged to somebody who was woodworking, take some of these tools. Take some of the tools that you've been using all the time anyway. Take this and take that. So they would have plundered them, not just for... When we think of plundering, we think of pirates. We think of taking gold and silver and pearls and all this stuff like a pirate would. Plundering is taking stuff also you're going to need. Chisels, hammers, saws. I mean, all this stuff. And we also see from the movies, you know, it's always just a ragtag people carrying someone over their shoulders and they're walking with bags and stuff. It's very possible that a small household would have had like 4 to 5 carts of stuff, being led by animals or people riding on animals or riding in the carts. And the carts are filled with this plunder, not just dripping gold and silver and pearls behind them, but anything you're going to need for an artistry, a craftsmanship, for dyeing. They might have had stuff that's not even mentioned here. You know, stuff for baking, stuff for cooking, different kinds of things. And of course, munitions with swords and stuff. You're going to have to protect yourself. Let's say somebody worked at a place where they made swords. Again, the idea is here is sound. Plus, along the way, later on, we'll find out if they stay out there for 38 years, maybe they traded with passing caravans. Once again, in the movie, you get the idea these people are walking in a desert all by themselves. There was this place called the King's Highway, and there would be trade routes around them. So it would be easy for 1 million people walking along to go a few kilometers or a mile or so down the road, trade with somebody, get something from a caravan, and then bring it back. So again, we really need to step away from television and movies and really see what the text is saying. So I like how they're doing with the acacia tree. There's plenty of them, and to be fair, God only asked them to make about, they only needed about 70 boards, give or take. In there, I'm counting that they need 20, and 20 is 40, and then the 8 and 8 is 16 to create the square. And I don't know about any cross pieces or anything. But okay, you're looking at about, if each tree created one pillar, okay, you need about 56 trees. They could have had hundreds of trees to choose from. I mean, we think of it as barren, but maybe it wasn't so barren back then. Maybe it was, you get the idea that they were in a wilderness that didn't have provisions. Didn't say it didn't have trees. We get this idea of, again, the movies. They're in the middle of the desert, walking around, everybody's dying of thirst. You can die of thirst in a wilderness, here in Texas. If you get lost in the woods, you can die of thirst. Oh, but you're surrounded by trees. So you get the idea that this would have not have been an impossibility of where they were. And so they went and got the onyx stones. They could have had stones. Let's say somebody was, again, a servant of a stonemason. I'm not going to go on that too far, but you get the idea of where I'm going with that. That these artistes and craftsmen could have been a culture of their own. Not everybody was just a mud-stopping brickmaker. That they had different kinds of talents. We're going to see two guys come in here, Bezalel and Aholivah. And these are the men that God has given for, we have wisdom and understanding in craftsmanship. And they have workmanship. They can devise curious works. They work in gold and silver and brass and cunning stones and in carving of wood to make all manner of cunning. And God put them in his heart that he may teach both he and Aholivah. These are men from the tribe of Dan that were filled with wisdom of heart to work in all manner of work of engraving and cunning work, in embroidery and blue and purple and scarlet, and fine linen and weaving that needed to be done. See, I always tell my sons this, and this is a funny story. You can imagine Bezalel hanging around thinking, well, I'm not a shepherd. I don't deal with cattle. I'm not a teacher. I'm not in security. I can't handle a sword, and I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm a craftsman. I'm an artiste. I create with gold and silver and brass and embroidery and stuff. Of what value am I? I'm of no value. Here we're going to go to this promised land, and I got to wait till there. I have no value along the way. And then all of a sudden, God's like, hey, this is what I need, and I got two guys over here that can do it, plus some other men. And he calls them up. Sometimes we look at ourselves and say, well, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a preacher, I'm not a minister of music, I'm not a this, I'm not a that. And God's like, but you're perfect the way you are with what you have. So it's very interesting. These guys are my new heroes, because you'll find out when I get into 36 in a minute, that 36 goes pretty fast, because it's a reiteration. What God said in 25 and what he again said in 35, these men do in 36. I mean, you'll find 36 is a mirror parallel of 25, and that's good. We think, well, this is boring, you're reiterating. No, I'm telling you that these guys, Bezalel and Aholivah, were to the letter keeping God's word. In a sense, they were holy men. God said, I want it done this big. I want these, it says that these wise-hearted men, they wrote the work of the tabernacle. They made 10 curtains, not 11. And they made them of purple, blue, and scarlet, exactly the same colors. The length of one curtain was 26 cubits. The breadth of it was 4 cubits. And the curtains were all of one size, exactly as it said in chapter 25. And when you go through this, you'll find them making it the way God wanted, with the loops and the facets, making with exactly 50 loops and 50 facets. And he's going to make the curtains of goat's hair and of ram's hair dyed red. They're going to have the badger skins. Everything is going to be precise. I wrote in here implementation. If we see 25 as the diagram, and then they're to the work in 35, and now we're implementing it and we're making it work, and these guys are staying on point to make this. They're not adding to it. They're not subtracting from it. We might also learn that in our theologies, we're so easy to add to. We'll make him 52 facets. We're going to help him out. Or we'll take away from, well, you really only need 48, and this will hold itself together with 48. Well, he said he wanted it, 28 cubits, but 26 is fine. Or, we need to make it 30 just to make sure we cover all the bases. No. Exactly as he has said. And he talked about how they made the beams. You go through the rest of this, where they made the sockets of silver, and they coupled those together. They made the bars of shittim wood, 5 of the boards on one side of the tabernacle, 5 boards on the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 boards for the bars. So here we go, where it's more than 56 also because of the bars. But okay, fine. More than enough trees. I was telling my son that probably these people was like, is that all you want? I mean, I've been dealing with lumber and wood for all my life. I've cut down forest of woods for the Egyptians. And all you want is 70 pieces of wood? And you only want it, 20 feet tall? I've cut them 40 feet tall, when I was back then. And you get all these women and men are like, all you want is of these 3 colors? Well, I know a dozen colors we could go with. And you want it embroidered with just gold? Well, I could add silver. Or we could put in brass. We could really shiny this thing up. Oh, I know you want cherub on there and pomegranates. Well, you know what? I think that leeks and onions or something like that, or palm trees would be cool. Let's put on that on it. Well, they do palm trees later. But you get the idea that these people are probably thinking, because they were artistes, well, if that's all you want. I mean, I have a friend of mine who's a master mechanic, and he really knows now goes down deep. And if I ask him just to do the spark plugs, he'd be like, is that all you want? I really think that's what's happening here. I think these people were so wonderful. And God's not wanting the minimum, but he wants simplicity, and he wants the way he wants to do it. There's a certain simplicity to the gospel, to Christian living, that sometimes it seems too simple. Sometimes it seems too basic. I don't need to add to this. No, you don't. So we finish up this chapter, and we're looking at 4 more chapters. In 2 days, we'll be done with Exodus, but I think it's going to be a good ride. When I go through tomorrow and the next day, of course, we're going to see again more of the implementation. We're going to see if these guys are really staying on beam. Are they staying on point? And then the consecration of the temple. And when it's finished, we have Exodus for the glory of God. It ends with the glory of God. But I don't want to rush us too quickly out of this book. Sit and think about it. Sit and meditate on it. He talked about the middle bar going across, and there was blue and flying liniments entwined with cherubims of cunning work. And they made the hanging door of the tabernacle of blue and purple and scarlet of needlework, and the 5 pillars were set up, and 5 sockets with brass. So far they're on beam. We'll see if they continue. Spoilers, they will.